Today, we're looking at some of the hot topics around the political economy as the elections draw near. There are some very critical issues going on around the nation today, namely the Naira scarcity, and then also we have the fuel scarcity. We're going to start with the fuel scarcity issue. This is a perennial issue that keeps going and coming. And is there that we're saying that there are no actually ways out of this problem and it will keep occurring this way, putting people through so much? What amount of investment has been made around making life easier for the people? And of course, there's the big issue of subsidy. When we really remove these subsidies, is there anything for Nigerians to fall on, or are we going to just hit the ground with so much angst and protests on the streets? How do we go about this? And of course, the central bank tried to do something. Of course, they're still doing it, and hopefully, eventually to become successful, which is the redesigning of the 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1,000 Naira. However, it seems like there's been a bit of miscalculation in terms of the velocity of cash that people need, or perhaps the production of new notes has been a bit too slow for the demands of the people, leading to situations where, as I speak, there's still quite a few queues in ATMs, that's automated teller machines, across the country. And in fact, in some very rural areas, we are now realizing that indeed the banking infrastructure, banking superstructure, if you like, has all but collapsed in many of those places. Therefore, people are just at the mercy of POS people, POS businesses, or whatever else. Otherwise, they keep their cash. Anyhow, joining us to discuss these very important issues is Malam H.F. Dauda, the Moisoro of FICA. He's not perhaps a new face on this channel. So you are very welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you heard the background that I tried to set. These two issues, very emotive issues because it concerns the people, concerns their pocket, and anything that concerns the pocket of our people don't joke with those
Absolutely.
things. Given the fact that, you know, if we look at it from a broader, perspective, incomes seem to have stagnated in Nigeria for a while. True. A lot of people have lost their job. Computers and robots and co are taking over people's jobs. I just mentioned the banks now. What I think may have happened is a scenario where, apart from issues of insecurity in parts of the country, the big banks seem to have rolled off all their branches from the rural areas.
True.
All over the country, meaning that they are just focused on those few urban areas where they can make the most money and so on. Of course, we call it capitalism. We don't have a choice. That's what we're practicing. But this certain event has now exposed some of those underbellies of our scenario. True. However, we're going to start with the fuel scarcity situation. Are we saying that there are no solutions to this problem?
Well, we're not saying that, but we're not addressing it. We're not addressing it. If we keep saying that we'll import and subsidize, we have not addressed the problem. There's no way. We told ourselves about rice, that we can't import rice. We told ourselves about motor vehicles, that we cannot import motor vehicles. We cannot import fuel either. We have to refine it here. We have to refine it in Nigeria. And an example is, where you have in the US 140 refineries for 300 million people.
Yes.
In Nigeria, we do not have one for 200 million people.
Wow.
So while there they have one refinery for about 2 million people, here we have zero for 200. If Dangote concludes the building of his new refinery, we have one for 200 million. And we still face the same problems of importation, because from Lagos, it has to be transported into Nigeria.
Interland, yes.
The same thing with imported fuel. From the port, it has to be imported into Nigeria again. So that creates the problems that we have never been able to solve. So
we once had the Kaduna refinery, Warri, Port Harcourt, and co. So
we have to refine locally.
If we once had those ones. Whatever happened to them?
We have our maintenance culture. If you solve one problem, another one comes up, and you cannot relent. You have to continue and solve that problem. What we're doing is we have local, put together, refineries that can now help. Let's develop that technology. If we need to refine, let's have at least 10 or 15 refineries spread out. I know it's very expensive,
yes,
but solutions are expensive. If we wait for the solution to come to us, we'll never do it. Let's agree that we need to refine locally. Let's fix the ones that we have and then build new ones. Dangote has done it. There are many business people that can do small scale refineries.
Small refineries.
Let them do it. Why do Nigerians have to keep money?
But I think by now we need to just go private sector.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not sure we can run that public sector led.
I think NNPC has been doing as best as they can. I wouldn't take any blame away from them, but I won't add blame to them. I think they have done as best as they can. Because when you see the technicalities that they have, the skills that they have put forward, it should be enough to solve the problem.
Yes.
But it has not, because the underlying problem is that we do not have the oil at hand. So you can't sell what you don't have.
Yes.
So that's what NNPC is doing. They're trying to sell product that is not available to them. When it comes, the demand is so high that it creates a panic. So what we need to do is we need to refine locally, and we need to do it across Nigeria. You know, and if it is security or funding or whatever, then we need to address that. That's what government is supposed to do.
We're lucky now, like we have this Bauchi-Gombe axis, that's the Kolmani. Then about 2 weeks ago, I understand they discovered some in Nasarawa State.
Thank you.
Then, of course, we also are sure that there's something in the Borno axis, the Lake Chad axis, which, you know, some allege that Chad and Nigeria has been tapping crude oil for too long. Indeed, yes.
So we have about 4 nodes in the north that can hold a refinery, from what you just listed.
Yes.
And in the south,
they're kind of spread.
They're spread evenly.
Nasarawa in middle.
Thank you.
In the middle.
Kaduna is there. Then you go to Borno. Then you go to Bauchi. The other places, the south, northwest, you know, Kano, Sokoto. Maybe that place will be a bit challenging, but it's okay to have one challenging area in the whole of the region.
Indeed, the north, like Katsina is close to. There's a refinery in Nigeria.
Thank you.
Maradi, in that same Maradi, there's one refinery
that is working.
That can also.
So we can buy. So if we have the spread of refining, then it brings the product close to the customer. Now the market forces will determine price. It's okay, but government should not be the one that says, I will import, I will, you know, transport, and then I will determine price, and then at the end of the day, I will make sure that you have enough. Government cannot do that.
There are too many variables to manage in that scenario.
So, but it should leave they keep saying, you know, downstream, but the investment downstream is very small. Only upstream the government has focused on. Downstream should be, you know, our transportation, our transporters, our distributors, our oil stations. These are very limited. If you travel across the north, you will travel past 20 filling stations before you see 1 or 2 that is operating.
Wow.
So why are they there? Some of them never dispense fuel, never. But they've been built and they're still sitting there with all the infrastructure. So there is a problem with, you know, us distributing that product. And the reason is because we do not refine. Let's do it here. I know it's very expensive. There is no doubt.
It is expensive.
But why do we borrow money and do things that will not help us?
Why not borrow and do such things that will solve real problems? Look at where we are today. Now, so this morning I was monitoring an interview on NTA. I think the GMD of NNPC was there. And also perhaps the MD of the downstream aspect of the regulator, you know, I don't know what they call them now. And of course, I don't know the acronym. Now it's not much longer. NUPRID or something of that sort. It's not much longer. We'll get used to it in time. And the part of the explanations they brought forward, number one, the GMD of NNPC said that their landing cost is around 300 now. And of course, they have to sell at 130 at the depot. And then those guys at the depot, the distributors have to put their own markup. The man from the regulatory agency also said there's some things going on internationally now, that a lot of the vessels that used to come to Nigeria are now going to the Balkan areas, and they see more activities there, including even those little ships that do the lightening. The lightening, when you bring the big vessel and they can't get into Apapa port, you have to send smaller ships to go and bring some of those, to go and offload, you know, little by little. So invariably we are having some challenges in that area, but they did give assurances that Nigeria has enough fuel for And of course, I think they also mentioned the issue of how bringing the fuel from maybe Lagos, distributing across the country is still a challenge. Yes. The trailers and coal, all of that kind of things, But with the subsidy thing, are we ever going to be ready to remove that subsidy?
Well, how do you remove?
Given the fact that if you remove the subsidy, and all of a sudden we know how very sensitive the transportation sector is. All of those buses will just increase their prices by 200%. Mama Put will increase their food by 100%. And down the line. And the common man is caught in the middle.
Thank you. But does the common man even understand the subsidy?
Does he even enjoy it?
Does he know that this product is subsidized for him when he can't find it? So the NNPC, like you describe what they are talking about, yes, they are addressing one aspect of the problem. That is actually the product getting to our market. But when you have a seller abroad who does not see the Nigerian market as profitable.
Exactly.
It's not profitable.
The man also mentioned the issue of exchange rate.
Thank you.
That when you are dealing in Nigeria, you have to deal in Naira. And so at what rate? But meanwhile, these guys who are coming are dollar-based kind of people. And so when they get the Naira, at what rate are they exchanging? Black market? When I was listening, even I got tired of all
the refiners abroad do not see the Nigerian market as profitable because there is so many obstacles of them delivering. Even if the money has been paid,
yes.
Say Nigeria went to them and say, here is our money, give us the fuel. After it has been paid, but for them to deliver, there are so many obstacles. So once they deliver, now NNPC now also has so many obstacles to get it to the customer. So the NNPC is doing what they could in terms of we don't refine, so we have to buy.
Yes.
So they are making sure they will buy. They're making sure they buy enough. But the process of getting it into Nigeria has become impossible. So how do we fix that process? Because, nobody is saying they're at fault for buying. And we are not saying we're at fault for complaining because we don't have any. But how do we fix the process? The only way to fix the process is to remove some of the steps in between.
Yes.
Remove the transportation of fuel from abroad to Nigeria. How? You refine here.
Refine locally.
Remove the transportation of product from the port to the customer by distributing in different refineries. Even the refineries can now, we have depots in Nigeria. I think we have about 17.
Okay.
But those depots, about 7. But those depots cannot even distribute close to the customer. There's still a long ways between many of the depots and the customer. So this process has to be, cut into pieces, and we have to remove as many parts as possible.
But then again, that is even investment. So we're basically saying that people should come and bring money and invest in those areas. Because I also understand that we have this, there's a certain Walter Smith modular refinery in Owerri. Maybe, I don't know how many barrels a day they do. There's another one that was opened, coming up in Benin or in Edo State. Hopefully those ones will be able to add to what Dangote can do. But there's also this thing about the Dangote experiment. They are going to be selling to Dangote at international prices, or all local refiners will get. Why must they sell at international prices? I'm wondering why you cannot do cost of production plus X amount of money to cover some costs rather than benchmark internationally. Are we not going to be, can't we see that we may also put ourselves in trouble in that regard? So they're looking at the opportunity cost of selling internationally.
It's similar to importing fuel. If we put Dangote at international rate, then we're just importing from Dangote.
Exactly.
So we haven't changed anything. Although the refinery is in Nigeria.
And in dollars.
Yes.
Okay, so, one of the big mistakes, and I must say, I've been saying this and I want to repeat it, that we made. You see, under Buhari, when Buhari came in 2015, indeed, by 2016, they removed this subsidy. When petrol price moved from 87 to 145, it was meant to be a full and final.
True.
However, the mistake they made, which Mele Kyari also mentioned today, even though in a different context, he did not acknowledge that it was a big mistake. He said they are, interested in the crude oil sector and, you know, in the oil sector, they will do their own thing. But when somebody goes and devalues the currency, they have to take that price. They don't have a choice. So there seems to be in economics what we call mutually exclusive relationship between devaluation and deregulation. If you deregulate, make sure you don't devalue. Because what happened in the case of Buhari's experiment was crude oil price went from petrol price went from 87 to 145. At 87, when Naira was exchanging at about 200, that 87 was about 40 cents per liter.
Exactly.
And so we increased to maybe 100, they increased that to 140 something, which became almost about 80 cents per liter. About 70, 80 cents when you're looking at 199 as the exchange rate. You know, but all of a sudden, we devalued from 199 to 360. And in devaluing to 360, 145 went back to being 40 cents.
Thank you.
And people say, how can people be buying at 40 cents, which is maybe $1.60 per gallon, as they sell in America, when they're buying in America at maybe $4 per gallon, and so on.
The subsidy is hidden.
So are we ready to keep Naira stable?
We can't.
Because if we don't, this thing will become a dog chasing its tail.
Exactly. We cannot keep it stable because the policies that we implement outside the crude sector determines the dollar rate. So, you know, when you have policies of, you know, market forces that keep the, you know, dollar falling and the Naira, you know, rising, or keeps the Naira falling or the dollar rising, you have forgotten the crude, you know, sector, because the crude sector is dependent on the dollar.
Exactly.
So when the dollar becomes so expensive, then we have created our own, you know, what do you call it? It's something that we cannot afford.
Yes.
So we created an
albatross of sorts.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you. So we have become, here is the product, we have it. But the pricing that we have agreed to is too expensive for our own. So now how do we make it cheaper? So they keep bringing these policies of, you know, price, you know, fixings, targets. You can sell beyond 190. How can they import a 300 and sell it for 130?
I mean,
where is the 170 Naira coming from?
What kind of business is that? Anyhow, we'll continue with that. We have to take a short break now and pay some bills. I will be right back.
That's great. It's good to see you.
Welcome back. And we've been discussing some hot topics around the political economy in Nigeria, namely the Naira scarcity and petroleum scarcity, with H.F. Dauda, Moisture of Fika. So welcome.
Thank you.
And so, you know, we were discussing that very terrible business model that the NNPC is running. I mean, I don't understand why, you know, I can imagine how they feel having to go import something, buy something at 300 to come and constantly sell at a loss.
Yes.
It's a terrible place to be, honestly speaking. But then again, also, I think that, for one, NNPC is the sole importer. Meaning that also the government must be very careful just to ensure that we're getting that monopoly is a problem. If there were other importers, I think they've tried that in the past and it didn't quite work out. But let us look at another topic entirely, which is the Naira scarcity. For the first time, perhaps in a lifetime, the Naira is scarce.
Yes.
And, you know, the central bank did have an idea to change the currency. Ordinarily speaking, We travel around the world, and almost every country, if not every country, changes their currency from time to time. In changing their currency for several reasons, it could be that you believe that there are too many forgeries of the old currency. It could be that, well, you just want to upgrade your technology around the currency and security features. It could be you have a new idea about how things could be done. It could be that you are trying to follow the money, or like in the case of India, they will try to do what they call demonetization by going after what they call black money. They believe that there was a lot of corrupt money that people were keeping in different places. They wanted them to bring it out. And so they canceled some denominations and said, by so day, 5,000 rupee will no longer be acceptable. Full stop, we're not doing it anymore. And so that created a stampede, just almost as we're seeing in Nigeria today. And again, I think in Nigeria, the last time we had this was actually under Buhari in 1984, when he came in as a military president. And that was the only time we had this kind of comprehensive change. Well, we could have had in the past, but, you know, I think what we are seeing is that as against the time we had just a £1 note, yes. Only £1, that was the only note. Everything else was coins. And then by 1978 was where we created 1 Naira note, 5 Naira note, and all of those. We started having 10 Naira, 20 Naira, Muritala came. And so we started having many notes, you know. So that was what was changed in 1984. We've created some more notes, 200 Naira, 100 Naira, 200, okay, 50 Naira came in 1991, 100 Naira came in 2001, 200 Naira in 2002, 500 in 2003, I think, and then 1,000 in 2005. And so we now have quite a broad range. Spectrum of but notes. Some of the old notes went into coins, and we can't see them anymore, like the coins 1 Naira coin. Exactly. So now, this is Buhari seems to be in love with the idea of changing currency. People are asking, why didn't you change this in maybe 7 years ago or 6 years ago, or even 2-3 years ago? You know, and is it the idea that they are really targeting politics and politicians, and should we be dragging central bank into such a thing? What do you think is going on? Many people are at the ATMs now to get Naira, and sometimes you see so much agony, people stripping naked in banking halls.
I saw that video.
You know, all sorts of things.
What I think is this, Nigerians, before the implementation, somebody asked me, what do you think is good about this issue? I said, well, the proposal they have made makes sense. You want to remove, we had 3.2 million trillion notes. Yes. We only have about 1.5 in the bank. There's 2 trillion somewhere unknown. So if you want to remove that or bring that money back into the banks, I think it's a good idea. If that is the intention, I think it is a good idea. But I warned at the time, implementation. We are so good, you cannot, and I will say today, you cannot implement a good idea by using punitive steps.
Exactly.
Because these steps are punitive. You say there's a deadline, that's punitive. You say you cannot get cash over the counter, that's punitive. You say you can only take 10,000 from the ATM, that's punitive. You cannot punish me for your good idea.
I think what I also see from your point is that even if you want to punish, why are all those strokes of the cane?
And now
there are 1, 2, 3, 4 levels.
Now look at the punishment. Who is going to feel the punishment? And you have to now go to the lowest rank of the society. That's the person who is going to.
And they are not supposed to be punished at all.
I spoke to a few of our marketers in Petrol today. And they told me the whole system has collapsed.
Wow.
It has come to a standstill. People are begging for 1,000, 2,000 just to feed. Because here is the economy is in cash. For a villager with product or produce, he has to bring it to the market. When he comes to the market, there is no cash to buy. So he goes back. Without selling his product, he cannot buy any produce or any goods or any services. So now his economy in the village is at a standstill. In the towns that have big markets, like Potiskum, now they are also out of jobs. I can give you a small example. The small people, women you see on the street hawking products, today they are not there because they do it on credit. They go to the market, they collect the product, they go to town, sell it, come and balance the owner at the end of the day. Now they have no trade because there is no cash. Nobody can buy anything from you. So you have no business. The laborers, the transporters, the truck loaders, they have no cash anywhere for them to get paid. So they are working until it comes to a standstill.
No, my thing is this. I like the policy to the extent that maybe it's probably says that, look, let's lumber cash around a little bit less. But I also note that there is no totally cashless economy anywhere in the world.
And why do we want to go cashless?
Number one. And I think, secondly, that perhaps the central bank is having to learn the inadequacy of the banking superstructure. For example, I was shocked when Governor Zulum came and said, listen, in Borno State, there are banks in only 2 out of 27 local governments. Yes. The rest, there are no banks.
Okay, you know, make it wow. 3. There is banks in Biu, Jere, and Maiduguri.
And the rest, no.
In Yobe, we have 4 out of 17.
Governments.
Out of 17.
Now, is it a rollback as a result of, you know, security?
Of course, the insecurity has pushed all the banks out of the local areas. So they have never tried, at least they are now willing to go back yet. So that creates a scarcity of, you know, financial institutions. But here is the question. If you're going to change currency, you have to be sure there are 3 things. 1, you have to be sure that the banks are efficient.
1.
2, you have to be sure that the banks are available.
2.
Everywhere. And then 3, you have to be sure that the currency itself
is available.
Is available.
And I think that's why we're going to have to close today. I probably will say that, you know, I think that the production of the new notes by the Mint or whichever company is too slow.
Too slow.
And there's been a massive
they did a horrible job, let me add.
Underestimation of the new color. I'm getting used to that 500. I particularly like the green one.
Job.
You
know,
that 1,000, I'm not
you know,
very
some
sure.
countries, when they, like Egypt, when they change their currency, it took them 5 years just to design. We did it in 3 months.
Honestly.
Why are we in a hurry?
Anyhow, I believe that they shouldn't just bring politics into the central bank. We shouldn't use the thing to target politicians.
No.
Even if politicians want to spend money on voters, it is the voters' money anyway. So it's boom time for voters. Let them go and spend for them. You know, I mean, for crying out loud.
And finally, if I may add, is that it's politicians that did this to us, and now they're the ones that have to pay for what they have done to Nigerians. Because Nigerians are definitely not happy with this process.
Okay, something has to be done. Thank you very much, Moisoro, for coming. And the show is already time. They've been my producer has been telling me to go. Thank you very much, viewers, for sticking with us today and for viewing this program. See you next week.